Hello, it's Gibson Shamar here from Hikati Media. We're going to talk about a childhood classic. Again. And this time it's the Flintstones. I actually started watching this show on the same day as the Jetsons, but the Jetsons is so much shorter than the Flintstones that I stayed with this one for another 3 months or so. I started it in August last year and finished it around February or March this year. Like I said, it's been a very busy year, so it took me a while to work on this video. But here we are. So, the Flintstones talk. Let's fornicate and go! Alright, so this is how it's gonna be. We're gonna have a look at the characters and then talk about the show as a whole. The usual stuff. You should be used to it. If you're new to this, don't worry, you'll catch on pretty quick. I'm gonna go through the characters and then talk about the show as a whole, providing my insight and interpretation of the show, as well as bring up a few interesting facts about it. So, now that we all know what's going to happen, let's get to it. First up, we have the main character of the show, Fred Flintstone. He's a very typical caveman, strong, not very bright, and likes to eat. He always gets home, slams the door open, and screams to his wife that he's home and that he's hungry. He's a very simple character, and one that causes a lot of conflict. He's not easygoing and is actually very selfish. He's very driven, self-obsessed, childish, brutish, and just a pretty great jerk to his best friend Barney Rubble. He works as a crane operator? I don't know if that's what he calls himself, but he operates a dinosaur like a crane. Despite all the words I use to describe him, Fred is a loving husband and a loyal man. His driven nature often leads to a lot of trouble when he means to be good. In a way, you could call him chaotic good. Then we have his wife, Wilma Flintstone. She's a housewife, bound and loyal to her oath of a husband. And she's very attractive. Very, very attractive. Very, very, very. Where was I? She's usually not up for whatever shenanigans Fred is up to, especially when it comes to stuff he does with Barney, because it always leads to some weird events taking place, and sometimes she is the one who saves them, using her cartoon housewife power. She has also been shown to be insecure about her husband's fidelity, or even about other girls who surprisingly throw themselves at him. Yeah, that happens. A lot. Go figure. She's sweet, caring, open-minded, and very cautious about things. She also has an irresponsible side when she at times overspends on her personal things, along with Betty Rubble. She is the voice of reason in the show. Next up, Barney Rubble. He's Fred's best friend, a short guy with blonde hair who has a tendency of cracking jokes, even in inappropriate moments. His jokes usually trigger Fred's insecurities, like this one time Wilma was meeting up with an old flame from high school who turned out to be a hunk. And Fred went through all sorts of trouble to one-up him. Of course, Fred won in the end because he stayed married to Wilma after all of that. Barney did that a lot of the time, actually. He's also not very bright. He holds a variety of jobs throughout the show, and the most prolific one was when he was a repossession man. A job he got thanks to Fred, after losing his original job thanks to Fred, and then left it because of Fred, since he had to repossess a TV that Fred hadn't finished paying for. Fred would often gamble the money away or use it on bowling balls. Of course, in the end, they found a way around it, and Barney had to relent eventually. Of course, after putting Fred through hell. That is the main thing about their relationship. Fred acts dodgy and Barney has to put up with it, then it backfires on Fred and Barney stays winning, until he decides to help Fred, and everything goes back to the status quo. We also have his wife, Betty Rubble. She's even more of a supporting character than the others. She can be seen and interpreted as Wilma's sidekick. Everything Wilma does, Betty falls in line with. Whatever Wilma says, Betty agrees to. Even when Wilma gets mad at Fred for something, Betty decides that she'll be mad at Barney for the same thing, even though she doesn't even know if Barney is involved or not. Yeah, that's so weird. But then again, it's how the higher-ups told me that I can't elaborate on how that behavior is not at all surprising. Anyway, Betty is warm, welcoming, stern, tough, has a sense of humor, and is a good housewife. She's a bit more responsible than Wilma when it comes to money, or maybe Barney just doesn't complain as much as Fred does. There's also Dino, the Flintstones' pet, who was actually a prey during a hunting trip. Fred and Barney had decided to go hunting and took their wives along. They wanted to hunt Dino, who was a talking dinosaur at the time, and he outsmarted them at every turn until he offered to be their pet. And from then on, he never spoke again and was dumbed down to just being a dog of sorts to the family. He was loyal, loved jumping onto Fred whenever he came home, liked going out, and was more loyal to Wilma than Fred. That's an important thing in their relationship. Then we have Pebbles and Bam Bam. Late additions to the show, but welcome all the same. Pebbles belongs to Fred and Wilma, and Bam Bam belongs to Barney and Betty, who for some reason couldn't have a kid of their own and wished upon a star for one. Then Bam Bam showed up on their doorstep the next day, having been left there by what we can only assume is his birth mother. There was a huge legal battle for custody over him, and it eventually worked out. And Pebbles has been teased so much before she was born. And when she finally was, her first words were yabba dabba doo. Very cute kid. Redhead, just like her mom. And I like how they showed that she has a crush on Bam Bam right off the bat. I also like how Bam Bam gets jealous when she gets impressed by other dudes too. I almost forgot about this guy, the Great Gazoo. He's an alien genie who was banished to Earth from his homeworld and had to do good deeds in order to be welcomed back home. He had magical powers and could grant any request made by either Fred or Barney, who got the privilege to do so because they freed him. However, often he tries to help. The limited knowledge base of Fred and Barney leads to more trouble than solutions, and they always blame it on him. No wonder he calls humans dum-dums. Anyway, on to the show. This isn't a serialized show, but it does keep in mind things that happened before and have been established. It doesn't have an ongoing storyline. The characters don't have an overall objective or anything of the sort. They're just living life normally. The way the stories unfold in each episode, we can basically consider this as a marriage, husbands versus wives show. It's usually the pair of men trying to hide their shenanigans from their wives or vice versa, and in the end, they make up. There are some other episodes that shake up the formula. Like a lot of shows with no fixed objective for the characters released around that time, like Top Cat and The Jetsons, they have a lot of dealings with criminals, but as normal people, not like crime fighters or anything. They stop criminals in their clownish, cartoonish ways, and it's always funny to see Fred act tough but then jump when a finger gun is pointed at him. He actually got robbed like that once. The show deals with prehistoric society in an interesting way. The people of Bedrock, which is where the show is based, have pretty much the same facilities as folks in the 1960s had. They had cars, telephones, television, irons, trash cans, a mail service, books, cameras, you name it. It was all dumbed down to prehistoric standards. Cameras are a bird with photographic memory that carves the image onto a rock inside a box. Cars are either entirely rock or a combination of rocks and wood. Tortoises are used as car jacks. Elephants are used in showers due to their trunks. It's a really fun twist on things. The animals always make jokes as well. They break the fourth wall and make remarks that only the audience can hear. And they're mostly about being tired of having no other job opportunities. Since they work, it means that all these appliances are paid for on a regular basis. Sheesh, the economy system was not kind to cavemen. The show, as I said before, is a lot about the shenanigans pulled by the men and their attempts at trying to hide them from their wives. It is entertaining and all. It's very simple comedy. The only oddity is that Fred always learns his lesson at the end of the episode and then just goes back to being an irresponsible jerk in the next episode. He's capable of just switching up out of the blue, and this causes him to end his friendship with Barney in almost every episode of the show. He then tells Wilma to stop talking to Betty because she is the enemy. It can be for the pettiest reasons too. It's never actually anything reasonable. He also has an uneasy relationship with Wilma's mother, who gives back as much as Fred gives her. In fact, she's the bully in their relationship. And at times, we forget that she does to Fred what he's always doing to Barney. The only difference is that she never gets her comeuppance from that. It also felt like the Rubbles were just following and imitating whatever the Flintstones did. The Flintstones got a baby, then soon after, the Rubbles did too. The Flintstones had a pet, then a lot later, the Rubbles got one too. The Rubbles never got anything before the Flintstones, but then again, the show is called The Flintstones after all. Perhaps it's how it was planned all along. No, I don't think I said that right. Was it something about poetry and rhyming? Nah, that can't be it either. Shoot. The show really grew up with its fan base. It was released back in 1966 and kept going for 6 seasons, and had multiple movies. This show is basically as old as my dad. I always wondered as a kid why so many shows would get new episodes, but Flintstones never did. Although sometimes they'd show episodes I'd never seen before. In fact, even as I watched this show, I never noticed so many episodes that were new to me. Some others brought up the emotional side of me because of the memories they unlocked, like my favorite episode, The Hot Piano. In that one, Fred wanted to buy a piano for Wilma and ended up buying one that was actually stolen. It was for their anniversary. In the end, they ended up playing the song, and it was a song that I memorized when I was a kid. When I started the show, I was just looking forward to this episode, and when it came up, it did not disappoint. My favorite character was... You know what? I didn't have a favorite character in this show. Go figure. Oh well, I liked how Fred was always complaining about how historians would end up saying that men were the ones who subjugated women and that women had no voice or authority every time Wilma would yell at him or make him do something that he didn't want to do. Those were my favorite quotes by the guy. I was also surprised to see that there were sequels and spin-off shows to this one. I had no idea. The one I want to follow is the Pebbles and Bam Bam show. I remember as a kid on Cartoon Network they'd show 3 Flintstones movies. The Man Called Flintstone, The Flintstones Meet the Jetsons, and I Yabba Dabba Doo. I always saw that last one as the finale of the Flintstones and thought that there was just a time skip from the end of this show to the movie. But it turns out that there's more content. I'm gonna watch it and one day talk about it here with everyone. It's a short show, 16 episodes. I'm guessing something went wrong. Either viewership or the network just lost interest in it and stopped making it. There was also this movie that came out in like 2002 or something, On the Rocks. I remember that one being advertised so much on Cartoon Network. I don't think I ever finished it because Fred and Wilma were arguing so much throughout the whole thing, you know? I was like, yeah, this ain't for me. At least I think. I know that's consistent with my way of thinking at the time. Either way, I'm gonna watch it all with time. So this is it. Why don't you guys tell me about how you saw the show? Did you like it? Did you miss it? Do you miss it? Is there something new you saw or learned from this video? Let me know in the comments below after you check out our Facebook page, our Instagram page, and go through our channel right here.